My friend died in a horrible prank. I wish I never learned what went wrong. The worst deaths, in my opinion, are accidental. I read last week about a mother who rolled onto her newborn and suffocated it. Every year, toddlers die from being left in hot cars. And then you hear stories of kids playing games, like one boy who hid in an unplugged freezer and suffocated to death during hide and seek. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being the person responsible in any of these situations? To me, this is so much more terrifying than the prospect of the paranormal. I'd much rather be haunted by a ghost than by guilt over unintentionally hurting someone. My husband, Wade, is the opposite. He's unbothered by accidents, but petrified of horror movies about demons or vengeful ghosts. But as I told him, none of those things are real, so why be scared? He counters that accidents are without malice, therefore not as scary as murderous ghosts that might be real. I guess he has a point. About the lack of malice, not about ghosts that might be real. I know they're not because if they were, my best friend would definitely be haunting me. I guess in some ways, she is. You see, whenever I read about a prank gone wrong, I stopped breathing for a moment. I'm choked by guilt. After all these years, I still don't know if it was my fault. I was never charged and my friends insist I need to stop blaming myself. But how can I? How can I move on, not knowing if it's because of me? Rosa got into the suitcase on her own. Lakeisha and I helped her. We were all drunk, giggling. She was supposed to surprise Bolin. She had a huge crush on him. Let me back up. Let me try to explain. We were at a party. Our friend group had been together for years, and we rented out this lodge. Me, my husband Wade, who back then was just my crush, his buddies Bolin and Tucker and JB, and the girls who were my besties, Lakeisha and Rosa and Kay. There were also some other friends who stopped by who we'd met earlier in the day while hiking. I can't remember their names anymore. What I do remember is that we all had a lot to drink. And Rosa, she was in her flirty phase. Rosa was my best friend, but she wasn't perfect. She was like a butterfly who sips from every flower. A real heartbreaker, beautiful and passionate. I was a little bit jealous of the attention she had, and also kind of in awe of her. Whoever she was with fell hard, like she was the love of their life. But she never committed. She'd been on again, off again with JB, then seduced Wade, which was kind of bitchy because she knew I had a crush on him. She'd even flirted with bisexuality with Kay. Now, her eyes were on Bolin. I forget whose idea it was for her to hide in the suitcase, mine or hers. All the luggage was in the basement because that's where the boys had put it when we'd arrived at the lodge. Lakeisha said something like, "Bolin's suitcase is big enough to hide a body." And that's when Rosa, or me, had the idea she'd hide in it. And Rosa decided to spice up the prank by wearing lingerie. When Bolin took the suitcase up to his room and opened it, he'd find a sexy surprise. We were stupid. None of us had good judgment, especially since we were tipsy. Once Rosa squeezed inside, whining about her hair getting caught in the zipper, Lakeisha and I went to go badger the boys to bring everyone's bags to their rooms. I remember Bolin delivered mine. I was staying outside in a tent with Kay. The lodge didn't have enough bedrooms for everybody, and we wanted to sleep under the stars. Kay had no idea about the prank and was confused when I kept urging Bolin to go inside and check his bag. Wink, wink. After he left, I told her about Rosa, and because Kay was actually sober, she told me to go make sure Rosa wasn't stuck in there. So I checked to make sure the suitcase wasn't still at the bottom of the stairs. At least, I think I did. But I was drunk. While all of us were sitting outside watching fireworks later, I noticed Bolin missing and asked Wade where he went. Bolin had gone up to his room early. Since he hadn't come back, Lakeisha and I assumed Rosa was in there with him and that her lingerie stunt had worked. In fact, Lakeisha and I were whispering about it all evening, quietly, so as not to make any of the boys jealous. In the morning, when Bolin came down, Lakeisha and I asked him about last night, all smirks. He looked clueless. Then Lakeisha asked where Rosa was, and he was still clueless. But what about his suitcase? Hadn't he opened it? He said someone had shoved all his clothes into the closet in a pile. He wasn't sure why. He assumed he was being pranked or something and hadn't seen his suitcase. "So you never opened it?" asked Lakeisha. Dread bloomed in my belly. Oh God, oh God, oh God. Lakeisha was telling him how we'd taken his clothes out and Rosa had hidden inside, hoping to surprise him in her lingerie, and Bolin blushed and said he was gay. Gay? But his coming out to us hardly even registered because where was Rosa? None of us knew. We quickly went to wake everyone else up, hoping someone had seen her last night. Oh God, oh God, oh God, I checked. Didn't I check? I swear I checked. Prayers ran through my head, but I was drunk. I wasn't sure if I really had. I went downstairs to the basement. There was the suitcase, still tucked away at the bottom of the stairs. It was exactly where we'd left it when we zipped Rosa inside the night before. Nobody wanted to open the suitcase. The boys argued about who had left it there. JB said he'd lifted it, but noticed how heavy it was and asked someone else to take it. Each of them had thought another of the guys was going to grab it. Bolin didn't think to check because he found his clothes piled in the closet. I'm ashamed to say I went outside when Lakeisha reached for the zipper. Wade came out and joined me. He told me dead bodies, gore, things like that scared him. While the others checked the contents of the suitcase, Wade and I sat outside. As we heard the gasps and whispers of, "Oh God," his fingers gripped mine tightly, and I put my head in my hands and sobbed. She'd suffocated, of course, but it had taken a long time. The police wondered why none of us had heard her gasping for help, but Kay sheepishly told them about the fireworks. A prank gone wrong, authorities ruled. My friends said then, and still say now, that ultimately Rosa was the one most responsible for her own misfortune, that she'd made her own decisions, that all of us were a little guilty, but none of us was wholly responsible for a tragic accident. But it was my hand that closed the zipper. I've lain in bed, thinking about her gasping for air. Why didn't she scream? Why didn't we hear any muffled shouts? I imagine her, squeezed into the darkness while her pleas for help go unanswered, and I can't breathe. But the real reason I'm writing this is because this morning, I saw a story in the news about a woman in her underwear found strangled on the beach. My husband switched away from the reporting, and when I asked why, he looked surprised and said he thought it might trigger me. Why? I asked. It wasn't a prank. I thought it might remind you of Rosa. You know, the lingerie. I suppose that aspect was similar. To be honest, that part of the tragedy had never really stuck with me as much. But now, I think about how we all stopped talking about her afterward. How her death was only a blip in the news. No details were released. In our friend group, Rosa's death became a taboo subject, almost like she'd never been with us at all. We all silently agreed to forget her. But the more I think of that report on the news, the more I'm getting that feeling from that day. That top of the stairs feeling. Like I'm looking down and seeing something I don't want to see. That oh God, oh God, oh God sense of impending dread. And I'm about to be sick. Because Wade dated her, too, and loved her. And I'm more and more certain I looked down the stairs before the fireworks, and there was no suitcase there. And now I'm wondering, if Wade never saw what was in the suitcase, never picked it up, or opened it, or moved it, how did he know she was in her lingerie when she died?